25th of the 10th, 2025. The time is 7 minutes past 10. And that means, as always, one thing, that there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. It is quali day, round 20, the Mexican Grand Prix. Danny, you're an absolute legend. 1977. Get yourself over to the Discord by dint of the community tab. Listen, we got to talk over the next 30 to 40 minutes about Max Verstappen, Lando Norris. That feels like that's the battleground upon which this fight for the Driver Championship will be won. It's going to get techier than techie things. Max Verstappen said he's none too happy with not just the balance of the car, but the absolute speed of it. Talking about race runs now, not quali. But Mark Hughes has penned a brilliant article where he talks about the sacrifice between quali and the race. So too, the approach that Max Verstappen needs to take if he's to win a Drivers' Championship. Bearing in mind, this isn't a one-on-one. This isn't 2021 all over again. Lewis and Max. This is a three-way fight. Ergo, can you afford a cheeky DNF? We'll talk about the Mark Hughes article and we'll go through some bits and bobs. George Russell, PowerPoint settings, because of course it's qualifying day. I tell you what, this is going to get techier than techie things, and I for one cannot wait for it. Everybody act cool. Let's go, Max. You're a legend. Quali run was good. Long run will be tested in FP3 100%. I think long runs were tested already, but you bet your bottom dollar that the likes of Sebastian Buemi for Red Bull back at Milton Keynes will have been putting in some simulations overnight, just as they did at the US Grand Prix. Here we go. Here's your broader context. 119 points. Listen, the Drivers' Championship's going to get techie. Lest we forget, 104 points was the delta between Max in third and Oscar Piastri in first, as far as the Drivers' Championship's concerned, as recently as Zandvoort. Since then, Maximilian Verstappen has eaten into that lead to the tune of 64 points. That is chaos. Currently, we sit 40 points down the road from OJP as Max fans, and Lando Norris sits 14 points down the road. This is going to get techier than techie things going into the dying embers. We know already that as far as the next 5 races, Mexico, Brazil, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Las Vegas, that those aren't happy hunting grounds, or at least they haven't been in the most recent past for Oscar Piastri. And this, as he approaches poor form, peak poor form. Oscar Piastri's season to date has been God tier, although over the last 10 races his form, whereas it was like this parabolic settings 3 seasons deep into his F1 career, metronomic, brilliant, almost forensic in his car placement. Lest we forget Baku last year on Charles Leclerc. Lest we forget the Italian Grand Prix chicane to round the outside to trailer park girls go round the outside on his teammate then, Lando Norris. Now all of a sudden, all of that's gone by the wayside. The US Grand Prix sprint race was clumsy from Oscar Piastri. So what has happened? Who is this driver in the number 81 car, and what has he done with our Oscar? It was 119 points accrued over the past 5 races. The delta was 104. It is now only 40. Here are your race times, or your session times even. So the pit to click, and again, these are all local Mexican time. So the pit to click, practice 3 will kick off. Again, our stream will kick off 30 minutes before green lights. Practice 3 proper will kick off at 11:30 local time in the AMs. Qualifying proper will kick off at 3 p.m. local time, and the race proper on Sunday will kick off at 2 p.m. local. Here's what Lewis Hamilton has been saying, that you really have to be cutthroat if you're going to fight with Max. That's what Max is. He's going to take this from McLaren if they don't do the same. Pertinent words here from Lewis Hamilton. He's going to take this, steal their lunch money. And I think Lewis is onto something here, and he's talking from experience, right? But then the circumstance in 2021 was very different from it is now. It was a 2-way. Now we have a 3-way. So the one thing that you don't want to do if your name is Max, Lando or Oscar is DNF. This speaks to the Mark Hughes article that they've got to go tiptoey, right? If you can't afford to DNF, then Max has to drive in a very different way than he did in 24 and 2021. It's tiptoe settings, because you might want to argue that Max can afford to DNF least of the 3 currently in contention. We'll talk more about that because Mark Hughes has penned a brilliant article where he's talked about all this mutually assured destruction stuff. Here are the updates. And again, the Mexican Grand Prix is techie, isn't it? Because it's high altitude, 2,000 meters up in the air, 2,200, something like that. Meaning, therefore, they've got to slay for two aerodynamic mechanical dragons. In the first instance, reliability. To finish first, thou first need to finish. And if you don't get your reliability by dint of your cooling ducts and your braking ducts correct, then Houston, we have ourselves a problem. And that's why you see all these god tier louvers. Can never say that word. Go on, look at this then. Look at the Red Bull one. Middle, top row, middle. That is super aggressive. Now, what they'll be giving up in aero, they'll be getting back in reliability, of course. But check this out. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah, Max, there we go. You can read the Honda logo, and again, courtesy of our mates over at F1 Reddit. It's techie. You're a legend. I appreciate you, Siddharth. You're a proper legend, Siddharth. I appreciate. Let me say this out front as well. I appreciate each and every single time your guys' support, and I make no apologies for labouring that point, because this community, this fan channel, ceases to exist without it. But I digress. Red Bull out here with the super aggressive. That is sexy, chat. Do you know what I mean? If I didn't have myself a missus already, I might consider proposing to that RB21 looking like that. And then you get to find out. Maybe this is deliberate. And again, the legends over at F1 Reddit have uncovered this, that Honda took their first victory in 1965. 65. That's chaos, chat. Anniversary settings. Maybe Red Bull then have done that at the altar of nostalgia. Then there are Red Bull upgrades. Remember, can we all just go, you're a legend, FA, I appreciate you, mate. That Honda engine looks ridiculous. I think we're going to meet. I think the point is, again, if we're indulging some nostalgia at 10:15 in the morning on the 25th of the 10th, 2025, of course, you've got to love that, right? That they've done it on the anniversary of the first race win of Honda, on the eve of Honda now joining Aston Martin. It's going to get techie. Chester, you're a legend. I appreciate you, sir. Like, I am grateful, more than words might convey. But I like this from Red Bull, and so too I like the fact that they're still bringing upgrades. McLaren want to talk of these papaya rules, that they're now doing what Mercedes did in 2021. They're divested out of the current year design philosophy. Mercedes did it then, and Max and Red Bull stole their lunch money. Don't think for a second that Max isn't capable of stealing McLaren's lunch money this time round, as they have these conversations about papaya rules and rules of engagement, etc., etc. I think McLaren are missing themselves a trick. Buongiorno, Saints Corner, you're a legend. Yuki-san had pretty good long run pace, so I'm not worried with Max at all. And Yuki gonna drive like Gunther RA270 legendary Honda vehicles on Sunday, maybe. And you're too kind, Siddharth, I appreciate you. So go on then, here's what Max has asked for, lest we forget, lest we find ourselves victims of some recency bias. At the Zandvoort Grand Prix, this Red Bull car was nowhere. Its handling dynamic was so characterised by understeer, snap oversteer. It could not ride curbs. It was a dog of a car. It had nothing. How many holes could a pail of water have in it before? It is no longer a pail, just a hole. There was no redeeming feature then to the RB21, and Max Verstappen told us as much. Pierre Vacher needed to pull his finger out, so too Enrico Balbo. And then Laura Mekies comes in and he starts speaking the engineering language. No longer is it a random walk approach over the course of a race weekend. Now Max Verstappen gets in the car, FP1 on the money, brake F1. Former performance engineer of Max Verstappen has told us on this channel, no less, that Max Verstappen's strength is that he only has one gear. Most of the other drivers play their way into the crease over the course of a race weekend. Not Max Verstappen, for some say soon to be 5-time champion. Gets in the car, FP1, wants to be on it. Lauren Mekies understands that and is looking to leverage that, weaponize that against other teams. And so come with the car and let's go straight away. No building yourself into a race weekend. Let's race hard, as hard in FP1 as we will in Q1, Q2 and Q3. It still feels like the Mekies effect similar to, you're right, Peter. Sometimes there is such a thing as a new manager bounce. But I think in this era, 2025, and this isn't me disparaging Christian Horner and his impact. 2005 is when he joined, and experienced ever since that day almost unprecedented success in Formula One. Christian Horner, let's be honest, was an absolute gangster back in his day. But now in 2025, it feels like the need, the skill and leadership demand from team principals, if you harbour aspirations to win races and therefore championships, is ever so slightly different. Since that moment, Lauren Mekies and team Pierre Vacher as well, thou shalt put some respect on his name, they've been throwing upgrades at this car. Last race weekend, you saw the front wing down near perpendicular, orthogonal to the floor, chaos settings. Flexi wing, can you spell it? They brought themselves a new rear wing. They've brought themselves new floor fairing, and that's revolutionised the way that the car handles and therefore the way that Max interacts with it. It's ground effect era. You need to be comfortable and it needs to be quick. It needs to be stable as far as the gap between its floor, the Venturi tunnels, and the track floor. And this now, all of a sudden, by dint of these upgrades, is it. But they're not stopping there. Albert Fabrica says that they've bought new brake ducts, new cooling radiator inlet, new engine cover, new cooling outlet, new floor side wings. Do you want to bring anything else? Red Bull. Meanwhile, the likes of Zach Brown and Andrea Stella are sat there on the hands, only thinking of 2026. This could be brilliant from Zach and Co. Andrea Stella, if indeed they manage to seal both the constructors, that's already in the bag, and the drivers, but they are taking a risk of gargantuan proportions. Lenecki, what's going on? You're a legend. Max is pretty much identical to Lando and Yuki. We'll talk about the times, I promise you. So go on then. This is what's happened going into this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen on the bottom, the blue line, is closing the gap massively. 40 points between him and Oscar Piastri as Oscar Piastri catches himself a cold, forgets who he is. I say again for the avoidance of doubt, who is that in the number 81 car and what has he done with our Oscar? Your circuit breakdown. It's going to get techie around here. I don't even need to show you this. We'll go through all these circuit breakdown bits and bobs later, 30 minutes before FP3. But I wanted to show you this. This is important. Max Verstappen has said a couple of things coloured by the broader context. Now, during FP2, there were lots of runs. And again, shout out to our friends, our brethren over at autosport.com for pulling this together. Now, FP2 long average runs. So Max Verstappen, you will see down there. Have I even got him on? Go on then in fifth. 1 minute 22.821. But he did that on mediums. What we want to be doing here is comparing and contrasting Max Verstappen's FP2 long run averages with those of the McLaren in Lando Norris's hands. Although it's not apples and apples. Soft compound from Lando Norris got him a 121.80 average. Now, compare the medium runs of Max to Charles Leclerc, and Charles Leclerc's quicker to the tune of 210. So I don't know what's going on here to see these numbers through another lens. This is important now, chat. The average soft run times of Oscar Piastri were 22.4, distant, 0.6 distant from his teammate Lando Norris on the softs. Max Verstappen on the mediums, 22.734. What's going on here? Well, of course, there is harder compound tax to be paid, and Max Verstappen is paying for it there. But over the long runs, every man and their dog, Helmut Marko, Max Verstappen are all saying that Lando Norris looked blitzkrieg quick. You would have heard Charles Leclerc came over the radio and said, bloody Nora, those McLarens look quick. They look like they're in another planet, another sphere. Even to which his race engineer Brian Bosey said, yeah mate, we can go for everybody else, but those McLarens look like they might be in a different league. And again, we have this conversation under the aegis of what happened last race weekend, them crashing into each other or Oscar yeeting it into Lando Norris. Better put pay to all of their track time, take away therefore a free practice session entire from McLaren. And that facilitated mistake after mistake after mistake. The most worthy mistake of mention is, of course, the fact that in a ground effect era, they went too conservative on the ride heights. Don't let that pace, therefore, or lack thereof, flatter to deceive if we're talking about McLaren. They were quicker than they showed in the US Grand Prix. And even in the dying embers, you saw Lando Norris matching Max Verstappen's lap times in clean air. Imagine, therefore, that they hadn't yeeted it into each other in the sprint race and had the track time requisite to dial in the appropriate ride height. They would have been quicker then. And Max Verstappen says exactly the same thing. when questioned after FP2, here's what Maximilian Verstappen, soon to be 5-time champion, said. The balance as far as the car wasn't even off. It was just that I had no grip. That is the bigger concern. As soon as you go into unsustainable, as soon as you go, come on, Cameron, get your words out, son. As soon as you go in a sustainable run, tyres are going in hot. This is the Mexican Grand Prix. This is what we expect. We were nowhere. You're not going to win races like that. You can be fast over one lap, but if you have absolutely zero pace in the race, then it's going to be very tough. So I prefer to be fast in a race and not so fast over one lap. Max Verstappen is telling us here that what he wants is a quick race car. Qualifying is going to be tech, remember. The run down to turn 1 is going to be 800 meters. Some say around here that it's better that you start on second. Why would you want to start on pole? You're a sitting duck, lest we forget the most recent excursion around here. In particular, 2021, when Max Verstappen went round the outside of both Valtteri Bottas and Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton. It's going to get techier than techie things. Breathe, Cameron. Blow your nose, son. Blow your nose if you need to. All over the show. Where there is bottle, there is no hope. You just need that turn 1 run to be perfect. So then where do you start, chat? Do you look to start in first? Can you even control that? Do you need to go hard to put it on pole and then go super defensive? Well, Mark Hughes has written a brilliant article where he speaks about all of this. In the first instance, the Max Verstappen context is key. When he was 104 points adrift, your boy Maximilian Verstappen had nothing to lose. So he could drive hard, right? There was risk, asymmetric risk at play. Max Verstappen going now 40 points adrift. He's got to drive differently, hasn't he? Can't be so aggressive. And again, remember, this is a very different racing circumstance and aspect from what we saw in 2021 and 2024. On both of those occasions, Max Verstappen was the hunted. He had the lead, he had the gap, and so therefore he could play defence and be super aggressive with a Sir Lewis Hamilton around Qatar as an example, because he had nothing to lose. A double DNF and Max Verstappen takes himself another couple of material steps closer to the championship. That was the case then in 2021 and the case then in 2024. Now, however, Max Verstappen is the hunter. Everything changes. He cannot afford himself a DNF then. And so you're going to start to see Max Verstappen of 2024 Las Vegas on tiptoes. But the circumstance for Oscar and Lando is no difference. The reason why, this isn't a two-way battle. If Max yeeted it into Lewis Hamilton in 2021, no harm, no foul, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Lewis Hamilton was the chaser then. Now, it isn't a two-way battle, it's a three-way battle. Max Hughes describes it as mutually assured destruction. Let's say McLaren take each other out, then it's going to get techie for them. Max Verstappen has the whip hand and the red pen in the championship all of a sudden. Max Verstappen needs to be adaptable here. Not that he hasn't shown it before. Las Vegas 2024, when he let Lewis Hamilton just go through. Max knows what time it is. In order to win himself a championship, he's got to be techier than techie things. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, but the most adaptable to change. And that's never been more apropos than now in the championship. 2025 with 5 races to go. It will get techier than techie things. I feel like Lando Norris has the whip hand around here though. The pace, the pace in absolute terms combined with the pace over long runs, it's going to get techie. Max is going to take it. Max will never change how we drive. Gio, he will need to, sir. I think he will need to. And I think he does change how he drives. It depends on the circumstance. You saw at Las Vegas last year. I was like, what? Is Max sick? I never thought ever that I would see Max Verstappen move out the way and wave on through a charging Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton. But we saw it then. And I think that's proof positive of the fact that Max will do whatever it takes to win himself a championship. It will get techier than techie things as we go into FP3 later on, and qualifying will be 30 minutes before. We'll go live 30 minutes before, lights out for both of them. And I, for one, cannot wait. McLaren 1/10 opening race crash, 1-2 opening race. I don't think that's going to be a true thing. I think they'll be on tippy toes now. Everybody, each and every single one of those top 3 competing for a championship needs to be on their tippy toes. For like Mark Hughes alludes to, legend of Motorsport magazine and the race, it will be mutually assured destruction to crash into anybody. No one can afford a DNF. That's the worst thing that can happen. I'm ready for qualifying as well. Val King is going to get techie. Yeah, manifest that papaya DNF. I can't do it. 11th 10. I can't. You don't play F1, and crashes are dangerous inherently, so I just can't. Know your fight. There you go, Max. You've taken the words out my mouth. Put it much more succinctly than I ever could. We'll be back 30 minutes before lights out. FP3 and quali. I cannot wait. It will get techier, of course, than techie things. How do you like yourself some F1?